Is this shaking normal?
We're hurtling through a time hole. Nothing's normal.
Welcome, friends. We're back talking Star Trek Prodigy Season 2 up to Episode 3, otherwise known as Who Saves the Saviors. Now, there will be spoilers ahead. If those are not for you, consider this your last warning. Let's crack into the show. All right, so we pick up just where things left off in last episode. I have to imagine that's going to be the status quo for the entirety of this season. It's seemingly pretty serialized here, and we're just going to be bouncing around between different storylines, different characters, different timelines, all of that stuff. There's really two storylines going here, and I have to imagine the A plot is our main quartet of, I keep wanting to call them lower deckers, our Prodigy kids, but not the entirety. So if you remember in episode 2, Jankum, Zero, Dahl, and a new character, a new Nova Squadron cadet named Majel, or Majel, or however you pronounce that. I don't think it's been spoken on screen yet, but it's obviously in reference to Majel Barrett. That is her character. They were shunted off into the future, although not quite far enough into the future to escape all of the shenanigans going on with the timeline. The secondary story is Gwyn trying to kind of prove herself to her people and show them that the Federation isn't all evil, and she has to complete some sort of ritual to prove her worth to her people. One minor nitpick about that, this is just something that goes all the way back to the origins of Star Trek. I don't necessarily know how I feel about all of these advanced cultures always relying on very archaic and outdated and sometimes barbaric rituals that kind of lead all the way back to their ancient history. I know it has a huge precedent in Star Trek, going all the way back to the original series and the Vulcans and things like that. It just always feels a little bit odd, that little juxtaposition of advanced cultures, but they're still rooted in these ancient tribalistic customs. Again, I digress. I actually did enjoy how that did eventually tie in to the main storyline, because our characters were shunted into the future, to the wrong future before they were supposed to get there, thus meaning they can alter history and change things. Throughout the course of the episode, they learn that they're imprisoned in the same place as Chakotay and his first officer, and they eventually come around to the fact that maybe they are supposed to be the ones to help him escape, and that was always a predestination thing. It's always a causal loop. They were always part of his escape plan, so maybe they didn't screw things up, and at the end of the episode, oops, somehow things were screwed up, which goes back and ties into the Gwyn storyline, because she starts fading from existence right before she wins her ritual. So by their meddling in time, they've kind of sort of maybe erased her from time, kind of similar to the way Back to the Future did it, where she starts fading out. And as she's fading out, she falls through things. She loses her corporeal nature, I guess you could call it, which, interestingly enough, seems to be a side plot going on with Zero kind of battling with the corporeal nature of things, so I wonder if that's going to tie in somewhere down the line. Maybe not, probably overthinking it. Those are the two storylines kind of coming together. Now, one small minor nitpick I had at the beginning, after the crew was sent into the future through this temporal wormhole or whatever we're calling it, Janeway kind of looked a bit defeated, like, oh, there's nothing we can do, bring me some sort of ideas, and then she slumps back in her chair. I know this isn't the Janeway show, I know this isn't Voyager, and she can't be the, primary driving force of everything. That just felt slightly too defeatist, or a little bit too ancillary to the way Janeway would have been in Voyager. I felt like she would have been more on solid ground there and, standing firm, like, all right, this is how we're going to handle it, instead of like, well, crap, I'm out of ideas. Let's just figure this thing out later on. Small minor nitpick. It doesn't really undermine anything. I just would have liked to see a more resolute version of her character there. Really nice to have the interaction between this crew and Chakotay on the planet, and I really like his first officer as well. I forgot his name. He's a kind of avian character, I think, which is an homage back to the original animated series, but I'm not 100% certain he's supposed to be, the same life form. If so, I'm wondering where his wings went, or maybe they're just kind of tucked under the uniform. That would be kind of cool, but we don't get to see that in this episode. What we do get to see, as I alluded to earlier, is the change in the timeline. So instead of sending the protostar into the past as originally happened, setting up the events of the entire first season of this show, it is recovered, and Chakotay and his first officer leave aboard the ship to do whatever they're going to do, which means it's never going to get lost, it's never going to bring all of these disparate slaves together to meet, and it's never going to probably result in Gwyn's being born, which is why she starts to glitch out of reality over in her side story. All of these things are sort of connected. Now, one thing I'm not entirely certain on here is I thought it was kind of mentioned in season 1, as long as this temporal wormhole remains open, it's connecting the two time frames even if there are changes in the timeline. So that means if they screw things up completely and utterly, because there is a connection between the timelines, events don't cement in stone until it's kind of shut down and the connection is broken. So therefore you can screw around in the past all you want as long as you have a gateway or a doorway connecting them. Once you break that bridge, then the time is kind of snapped shut and the changes take effect. I don't know, maybe I'm misremembering, maybe that's from another show completely. I thought that's kind of how it was described in season 1. Be that as it may, I am kind of shocked how far they're willing to go into the changes in the timeline and the various effects and alterations thereof in a children's show. I'm not mad, I actually enjoy it, and I'm quite excited to see how far they take this in the future. It was nice to see a fully formed Chakotay here. He wasn't really falling for the half-truths or the stepping around the reality of things that our four characters were kind of giving him. Now, I don't think he necessarily knew exactly what was going on. I don't think he knew there was any sort of time travel, maybe, but he really wasn't buying what they were selling, and I like that because he is supposed to be a really competent officer, especially if you remember all the way back to his origins. He was also kind of a freedom fighter, and he was, kind of working against the Federation at one point, so he has a lot of history and a lot of dealings with people that aren't necessarily on the up and up, so it would be very disingenuous to believe he was kind of falling for their story. Even though he didn't come right out and let on, he definitely wasn't buying 100% what they were trying to sell him. Overall, it was a pretty good time, and I like to see our characters solving problems using skills or abilities, especially Jankum trying to control his hand remotely in order to get them out of the cell. I like that because it wasn't your typical just, oh, we tricked the guard by telling him a lie, or oops, we accidentally bumped into something and shut down the force field or something. They had a plan, they went through with it, it didn't work 100%, but it actively got them out of there utilizing their skills and their abilities and their technology, and then ultimately at the end of the episode to show us they changed history, and seemingly the only reason it was changed is because a phaser rifle or something was left in Chakotay's path. I'm still not 100% certain what they did to make that happen, but that is kind of, I guess you could say, the butterfly effect of this episode. I am very interested to see how they're going to deal with the different versions of timelines now that they've changed the history of their own show. Are we going to see different versions of our characters? Are we maybe going to have a younger Gwyn and an older version who actually grew up on Solum originally? And how are our characters who were left behind, those being, obviously Janeway and her Voyager A, but Rok-Tahk and Murph, I guess, plus the rest of the Nova Squadron and the Doctor, how are they going to deal with the changes in time? Or are they not going to notice there's been changes in time and everything's going to change around them? And maybe they don't even remember the characters that left and went through the portal into the future, because from their frame of reference, they never found the protostar and came back to the Federation, so they may not even remember who they are, in which case are Rok-Tahk and Murph going to blink out of existence? A lot of possibilities going on, and I'm actually pretty excited to see where they go. How are you finding it? What did you think of this episode? Whatever you thought, leave that down below. Like, share, subscribe, do all those YouTube things, and until next time...
Nice tattoo.
That's the opposite of quiet.